Hello and welcome to Todd Rolls Dice, where it's time to take a look at the new Gloomspite Gitz as the bad moon rises. So this is the first of what I think is 3 preview articles. They're all going to drop together. I'll chapter it up so you can jump to whichever one you want. But we're going to run through how this army functions. This article, and I believe the next one, is all rules based. There may be a lore one, we'll see. I don't know much about Gloomspite Gitz. In fact, I know next to nothing about Gloomspite Gitz. So this is going to be interesting for me to see how they work, coming from a complete idiot. So if I get things wrong, or if I'm misunderstanding things, do let me know in the comments. How about we get into this? Take a look at the 4 faces of the bad moon, and see how they influence the Gloomspite Gitz. The shine-stealing grots of the Gitmob are hurtling across Heish as we speak, in a ferocious new army box featuring Drogs da Sunchomper. I always want to say Storm Chaser for some reason. Which is available to pre-order on Saturday. That will be the Saturday that this video goes up. Those speed-drunk grots may be more concerned with the sneering contempt of the glare-faced Frazzlegit than the lore of the bad moon, but that cantankerous lunar deity still has an undeniable effect on all grots. In times past, the bad moon was as capricious as it was cruel, coming and going as it pleased and watching the Gloomspite Gitz scuttle around in panic and frenzy. That all changes in the upcoming Battletome Gloomspite Gitz. You will be able to set your watch to its waxing and waning, so they can control the moon. I didn't know they had Troggoths. I thought Troggoths were their own thing. I like the Troggoth models. The big Troggoth dude that came out at the end of 3rd, stunning. Absolutely like the Troggoth King, stunning model. With new battle traits, the Gloomspite Gitz are now always cavorting under its sickly glow, and it now starts each battle on one of 4 malevolent expressions, cycling through them every battle round. This is quite cool, I like this mechanic. So once per battle round, at the start of the battle round, the faces of the bad moon declare, you must use this ability at the start of the battle round if multiple players are commanding a Gloomspite Gitz army, then instead, at the start of the battle round, those players roll off and the winner declares and uses this ability for this battle round. So you either get it or you don't. Which really keeps mirror matches faction mirror matches interesting, because you're going to lose potentially chunks of your buff. Very, very cool. Effect. If it is the first battle round, pick the starting face of the bad moon. Grinning, scowling, sulking, or cackling. If it is not the first battle round, the face of the bad moon moves to the next face in the sequence. So these are running around clockwise. You pick where you start, but you go grinning, scowling, sulking, and cackling. So grinning, scowling, sulking, cackling, by turn, each new grimace empowers different aspects of the Gloomspite. Good old-fashioned Moonclan grots are turned into frothing zealots who will ferociously defend their latest conquest when the moon is cackling or grinning, while the Gitmob's sneaky snarlfangs can retreat with alacrity and still charge or shoot while it is sulking or cackling. The moonlit hides of the Troggoths become even tougher when the moon is grinning or scowling, so perhaps you'll want to begin under that winning grin to ensure 2 turns of protection against armies that want to get up close. This choice gives canny commanders a wealth of approaches for armies and army composition, and that's the thing that this article is telling me the most. Mixed army, buffs constantly kicking off all the time for different units, but you really planning how to use your forces. There is ways to manipulate, which we'll get on in the article below. This is the second time I'm recording this video because I got so tongue-tied with some of these words. So I've got a sneak peek on this one. There is ways that we can manipulate it, and we'll take a look at that below. So don't worry that you're fixed into this cycle, but it really gives you that idea of mixing up units and maybe not going too heavy on one type of thing, which might not be what people want. People might want all Troggoths, if that's even possible. I don't know anything about this army at all, composition, lore, any of it. But I think having these different buffs means that you actually look at other units while making the decision, which I think is interesting. You might not pick them, Like, I look at all the Chaos Slaves to Darkness stuff. I still pick Dark Oath. Doesn't mean I don't think the Ogoroids have a cool profile. But anyway, let's get into this. So their passive is one of these three, depending on the cycle of the moon, or the face of the moon, under the light of the bad moon. Frothing Zealots, while the bad moon is cackling or grinning, add 5 to the control scores of friendly non-squig moon clan units. I think that's just your inventory Gitz, isn't it? Sneaky Snarfangs, while the bad moon is sulking or cackling, friendly Gitmob units can use charge and shoot abilities even if they used a retreat ability in the same turn. Very nice. And Moonlit Hide. While the bad moon is grinning or scowling, subtract 1 from the rend characteristic of combat attacks that target friendly Troggoth units. It's not overly strong, but it is quite nice to have. -1 rend. Helps keep your bigger monsters alive a little bit longer. And there's quite a few characters, and maybe units as well, as we get into more releases and stuff, that do have that, you know, on a crit or on a charge, -1 rend for monsters and stuff, so it helps negate that if you're in this phase of the moon, which is quite cool. Capering Grot Shamans and Mystics have experienced an epiphany with this new moon, and after chewing on a crop of inspiration mushrooms, they sound amazing by the way, I don't like mushrooms, but if they're going to get me high and give me inspiration, I'm all for it. They have rewritten the law of the Clammidank, the what now? To suit the change in the bad moon's humours. Bad Portents replaces Sneaky Distraction, granting the caster a chance to tell the bad moon what face it should be pulling with a roll of a d6. Ushering on the next main in the cycle a roll of 3 to 5 and telling it exactly what counterance to contort to on a 6. So basically you move it on 1, on a 3 to a 5, and on a 6 you pick your phase. To use proper English. Sragot the Loom King has similarly altered the manner in which he entreats the bad moon, demanding its guys remain fixed rather than stalling its orbit. So he will give you 2 turns of whatever you've got, which is quite cool. So Bad Portents is a spell, it's unlimited, which is nice, goes off on a 6, and pick a friendly Gloomspite Gitz wizard to cast this spell, then make a casting roll of 2d6, and on a 6, you roll 1 dice, on a 1 to 2 nothing happens, on a 3 to 5 the face of the bad moon moves to the next face, so it just cycles on, but on a 6, you can pick a new face for the bad moon for this battle round. What I'm assuming is you pick that face, it might even tell us, I haven't got past this bit. I'm assuming that you pick that face, so say you start at cackling and you cycle through to scowling, but you want to go back to cackling. You make your rolls, your spell goes off, you roll your 6, you say cackling, it cycles back round giving you those buffs again. Is how I'm reading it, anyway. While Gloomspite armies can't be bothered to dance to the tune of the bad moon's facial contortions, they call upon the male violent moon from the dank manifestations law, this sorcerous slice of Selenic simulacra, who the f*** writes these, bathes every unit wholly within 12 inches of it in a lurid light which stimulates all 4 phases of the bad moon, letting your army reap all of its benefits at once. That's nice. So the male violent moon, lurid light, is a passive effect, while friendly Gloomspite Gitz units are wholly within 12 inches of this manifestation. They are affected by all 4 faces. You would definitely be bringing that manifestation. The bad moon may be careening all over the realms, but that doesn't mean that the glare-face Frazzle Git isn't baking brains and raising tempers. We'll be basking in this infernal radiance, taking a look at how the Gitmob do battle tomorrow. What is a glare-face Frazzle Git? Because they keep throwing that out like I should know what it is, and I'm simple. I don't know Gits. I don't travel in those areas of the mortal realms. I'm just a simple folk. I'm too busy out in the fields playing with the Dark Oath. We just kill everything, we don't ask questions. But we're going to go and take a look at those rules for the Gitmob now. Yeah, this sounds good. The buffs aren't ridiculously strong. When you start to stack them with the Malevolent Moon and you can use Bad Portents to tweak the faces, it becomes really interesting, but they're still nothing overly powerful, just very nice. Again, it's how they interact with the units more than anything else. Buffing control scores is nice. Charge and shoot after a retreat is very nice, but it depends how strong those units are and how good, what bonuses they get on the charge and how good their shooting is. but it's a nice to have. And I just think generally a -1 to rend is pretty nice where you can get it, so I don't think you can argue with that one. But yeah, fun, interesting, loads of... It's just so wildly written. My brain hurts already. But let's go see how the Gitmob do. Snarl, dazzle, and roll. Here's how your Gitmob run roughshod over their enemies. The Gitmobs aren't your run-of-the-mill cave-dwelling shroomheads. They love the great outdoors, the thrill of the hunt, and the unstinting gaze of the glare-face frazzle git. I think that's the sun, isn't it? That's what they call the sun, because they live in caves. I get it. And that's why he is the sun chaser. Yeah, it all makes sense now. You see, just one extra article. Everything's falling into place. I love these new models, by the way. They're absolutely stunning. They race on to war on the backs of looping snarlfangs and rickety chariots, exhilarated with the power of Haish. With a Gitmob army set available to pre-order on Saturday, we're taking a closer look at those freewheeling grots, bringing a ferocious new facet to the Gloomspite Gitz. Despite their twisted love and hate relationship with the sun, the Gitmob are still grots through and through, and remain in thrall to the whims of the bad moon. Where these sun-baked grots differ most from their cave-dwelling kin is through their use of magics designed to suck up the power of Haish, a far cry from the damp spells of the Moon Clan. I'm just looking at the models. I think the models are great. What are they fighting? Are they fighting Slaanesh? Yeah, they are. The Knights of Slaanesh, I think. Drogs the Sunchomper, not Sun Chaser. I keep thinking he's called Storm Chaser for some reason. I don't know why. Drogs the Sunchomper because he's chasing the sun to try. Yeah, you see, brain work properly. He's the most infamous of all the Gitmob leaders, riding into battle with the frazzle fangs on his back. A corona of radiant sun metal that blinds nearby enemies, subtracting 1 from hit rolls and preventing the use of all-out attack. Wow. He follows up with his weapon, Da Metal Tooth, and when he really wants something dead, he'll bellow, "Rip 'em to bits!" provoking allies to fight immediately after he has. He's got all the rules. I like this. So, passive, the Frazzle Fangs. Effect, when an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this unit, subtract 1 from hit rolls for that enemy unit's attacks. Within 6, okay. And that enemy cannot use the all-out attack command. It's generally quite nice, and it gives him a little bit of survivability potentially. And Rip 'em to Bits is a once per turn reaction. You declare a fight ability with this unit. So effect, pick a friendly Gitmob unit that has not used a fight ability this turn and is within this unit's combat range to be the target. So you've got to be close. The target can be picked to use the fight ability immediately after the fight ability used by this unit has been resolved. So it's just a nice way of stacking an extra bit of combat. There's quite a lot of this in the Dark Oath stuff. Just a generally nice thing to help you 1-2 punch, make a big dent in an enemy unit, which is quite nice. As he races into battle atop the ferocious, jagged snarl, Drogs is accompanied by hordes of snarl-pack cavalry, the closest thing the Gitmobs have to shock troops. Each giant snarlfang is big enough to carry 2 grots into battle, which means twice as many weapons to hack and stab away at their enemies with. That's nice. The Frazzleburn scrap that these smug grots swipe from post-battle loot piles and forge their weapons from can disorientate enemies with a dazzling flash before soaking up enough light, granting strike first. Wow. Pointy skewers and snarlfang jaws and make their mark without fear of reprisal. The pointy skewers +1 damage on the charge, and they can, under the right phases of the bad moon, fall back, shoot and charge. 4 attacks, hits on 4s, wound on 5s, but only 1 damage. So not overly reliable, but the giant snarlfang's jaws, which is a companion attack, is 3 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, 2 damage. So a little bit more reliable. And once per turn, any combat phase, the Frazzleburn Scrap, if this unit charged this turn, it has strike first for the rest of the turn. So that happens off a charge. That's nice. That's really nice. So if you need, you can retreat. I mean, provided that these things stay alive. But if you need, you can retreat, and then you can charge in again. Rounding out the contents of the army set is a pair of Sunstealer Wheelers. Lightweight Snarlfang drawn chariots that rattle and roll across the battlefield with wild abandon. The riders prefer the use of bows and stickers to keep their foes at arm's length while racing around, but the primary use of these line-breaking war machines is to wreak careening destruction via mortal damage in the process. Sounds like fun. Sunstealer Wheelers, once per turn, your movement phase. This unit can move a distance up to its move characteristic, it can pass through other models and the combat ranges of enemy units, but it cannot end that move in combat. Then, pick up to one enemy infantry unit that this unit passed across during the move to be the target. Inflict D3 mortal damage on that target and add 1 to the amount of mortal damage inflicted for each model in this unit. Designers note this unit can use this ability even if it is in combat. So you can pop that and you can move it out of combat. As long as it doesn't end in combat, you can move it. Oh, that's nice. With the upcoming choice of Snarlboss and Frazzlegate Shaman on Warwheeler as heroes for your army, plus the revival of the Doom Diver Catapult, the finest grot conveyance system since Troggoth learned to throw overarm, it's possible to create a Gloomspite Gitz army entirely out of Gitmob units, free to ride into battle atop Chariot and Snarlfang alike. So there's a Snarlboss coming, and then there's the Frazzlegate Shaman coming as well. And he's on a Warwheeler. Have we seen those? I'll dig out images if we have seen those yet, but that might just be a little nod to what's coming. The Drogs Gitmob Army of Renown, oh, it's an Army of Renown, makes for a Gitmob army that specialises in flanking the enemy and using their momentum to pick and choose fights. They sound great. They sound exactly how I like to play, to be honest. Battletome Gloomspite Gitz is contained in the Gitmob army set, but you'll be able to get it separately shortly after release. Okay, so they're making it sound like it'll be a few weeks. They're really starting to build up this release schedule. It is full of background lore for these particular grots. Tomorrow we'll give you a preview of what the Gloomspite Gitz think of the Glare-Face Frazzlegate and how they square its existence against that of the Bad Moon. But you don't have to wait till tomorrow, because we're going to take a look at that right now. So I was hoping, and from the teaser on the last article that we did, we'd be getting some more rule stuff, but actually we're not. It's lore stuff now, it's looking at the models, it's looking at lore, so we're going to quickly run over it. I'm going to link all this stuff in the description below for you to check out if you want to. I'm not going to read it word for word. But we have this, and this is genuinely, I find this stuff fascinating. So this article is a retrospective on the many ages of the Gloomspite Gitz. And it just runs over all the old models, there's bits of lore and stuff. You can see, I mean, that's got to be a fantasy model, right? Or what would be a fantasy model now if they were using the Gitz in fantasy. But that's classic Warhammer. Slightly updated one. You can start to see the sculpting is getting better, and then that's the new one. So all of these models are quite, well, they have quite a history in the Warhammer fantasy realms. But what a stunning model the new one is. Absolutely beautiful. But the Gitz themselves, despite the proportions changing, I think, they've not really changed, which is actually quite refreshing. They still look pretty cool, pretty snarly, pretty nasty, but also kinda cute and stupid. So that's the Snarlfang Riders. We then go down to the Gitmob on Wolves, and you can see here the different variations of them. Sadly, we seem to have lost the bows. They have to be coming back to fantasy, those ones in the middle, surely. But I think the thing that sets these apart, the Gitz, the proportions have gotten a bit better compared to the other stuff. With the computerized, CAD design and all this stuff. But the thing that really stands out to me is how the wolves have changed. See, those wolves, the old original wolves, these were probably metal, if I had to guess. They're very similar to these ones, they're just slightly bigger, these. Different facial expressions. But the new wolves, they look so much cooler. And the paint helps, obviously the paint job helps, but this glow up is absolutely stunning. And then over onto this one was my favourite, the Doom Diver. Originally it was just, I'm guessing, a 25 and a 28mm base, and it's a catapult on wheels with a guy standing next to it with wings. Very Leonardo da Vinci-esque. And then it moves on there, obviously I remember that one. Square bases, definitely fantasy. Just fantastic little models. And then the new one there, the new updated, which is quite impressive. And I didn't realise that they've now upgraded it so much that they have an ox or a bison, or it is more of an ox, isn't it? Just carrying the whole thing along. Really, really cool model. And then the Moon Clan, they've not really changed that much. They're still very similar. They've always had these hoods with the ears sticking out in the snouts. They've lost the ears are tucked in. But they're probably the ones who have changed the least. And that might be that these models haven't been refreshed. I don't know. But they still look very similar, certainly to the original artwork, going back as far as. That's nice to see, that they have kept their identity and the moon on the shields, and yeah, this is definitely an army who have been enhanced by modern technologies, but they haven't lost any of their character, I would say. And then down here we have Skargrot the Loom King. Honestly, I prefer the middle one, with a big squig. I mean, it's probably because it reminds me of one of the dogs from Ghostbusters, but again, kept the character, still fairly similar. Nice to see. Yeah, it's really well done. I love this stuff. And obviously the artwork as well, getting to see the character artwork and then the models, and this ties it in really nicely. And Troggoths, I remember those boys. They were definitely metal. I don't remember them, they might be older. Don't remember that one either, but that's one of the newer ones, isn't it? But again, if you're comparing that one to that one, they're still fairly similar. Yeah, really cool to see. And then the squig, the humble squig, who, in all honesty, hasn't really changed that much. If you painted up that model there, the same way that you painted that model, you'd have a very similar thing. Squigs are just such an iconic thing for Warhammer, aren't they? Really, really cool. I like these articles. It's nice to just take a retrospective look back, isn't it? But this is really cool. I think my favourite one, it's probably the 2 base Doom Diver. I just think that's really, it just epitomises how my brain interpreted Warhammer Fantasy when I was first getting into this stuff years ago. I don't think I've ever seen that, but it's such a cool, just quirky, wild little model. That's my favourite, but let me know what you think. And now we're going to jump on to the next one, which is books to read. There's no rules, so if you want to dip out now, that's absolutely fine. Do drop a like though. We're just looking at quick bits of lore now, because this is a faction I know very little about. So hopefully you'll enjoy and stick around, but there's no rules, so you're not going to miss out anything. So, like I say, this is just books now. It's 4 brilliant books from the Black Library to get you into the Gloomspite Gitz. Again, I'm not going to read this word for word. We have Git Slayer, Gotrek Gurnason, but this is part of the Age of Sigmar, because obviously they've got to build up the Age of Sigmar stuff. The Gits are an Age of Sigmar faction now. Git Slayer, let me know in the comments, is it worth looking into the Slayer series? And if it is, where do I start? That's a question for you guys, let me know in the comments. Grombrindal, that's the newer one I think, is also Gloomspite Gitz, but it's, again, just a dwarf novel. Are the Gits, I know that they have their own books, and we'll get to that a little further down, but are the Gits just used as just a faction for people to fight, very much like Skaven? Gloomspite, that looks like an older one, doesn't say when that came out. That's a cool cover, it has that 80s vibe that I think Sigmar loves to dive into, and it does really well diving into it. The Gloomspite, that's probably a better place to start in all honesty. And then Bad Loon Rising, which is a Zograt and Skrog novel. And you've got a bit of a Troggoth going on there. They have models as well, although they don't link the models, so have those models disappeared? I've heard good things about that one actually. A friend of mine plays Gloomspite Gitz. He loves his little Gitz. I think he did Bad Loon Rising on Audible, and he said it was very good. A little bit of reading for you guys there if you want to learn more about the factions. If you have any other suggestions, let me know in the comments. And the final article of this video. All of these are linked below if you want to go into more detail and read it for yourselves, please do. But this is just about the Bad Moon, the Evil Sun, and the dueling deities of the Gloomspite Gitz. They're really going hard on the Gloomspite Gitz. No other faction got this much. Even Stormcast, even Skaven. I don't think Skaven got anywhere near this many. Like, they've dropped 4 articles in the last 24 hours, all of Gloomspite lore. So it feels like they're really pushing this. And I would have thought that Gloomspite were quite a popular faction anyway. But here we have and I'm going to read this myself. It just goes through the Bad Moon and the Glareface Frazzle Git, which I get now, having gone through the previous articles. The artwork is just crazy, isn't it? I love that picture. I really like this guy. if I was going to go Gitz, and I'd be tempted to, it depends what the spearhead box is. I think we've seen the spearhead box, but it depends what the spearhead box is. If the spearhead box is these guys, I'm all in, because I really like the sun chasing angle to them. I think the wolves look cool. I think that'd be a fun painting project as well. They look more like rats than wolves, but they look cool. I mean, there's this artwork here. I'd love to know who did these artwork. Hopefully they're in the Battletome as well. But they just have a Tolkien-esque vibe to them, don't they? Really, really cool. That one in particular has a Tolkien-esque vibe. That one looks a bit more generic 80s fantasy, which is a design aesthetic that I grew up with and I love. So yeah, really cool. Loads of Gitz lore if you want to learn more or just brush up on your knowledge. I'm going to read through these separately. And the Gloomspite Gitz army box with all of the new models is going up for pre-order tomorrow. So let me know in the comments if you're going to pre-order it. As always, thank you very much for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.